Welcome students to the online NPTEL course on of visual communication design for digital media. In previous module we started discussing about the generic design methodology. We will continue that and we will discuss what are the generic design methodologies, broad design methodology is. In that we are mainly focusing on the graphics and web application design, because animation is a little the methodology for the animation and game design is a little different. So later also we will discuss each and every paradigms of digital media design in detailed fashion. So there we will discuss about animation and web design and graphics design separately with their detailed methodologies. So in visual design process of generic visual design process, first here in the diagram you can see, so we generally follow 4 steps. First is orientation, so aligning or understanding the user, and orientation also is like understanding what kind of design brief that is, what is the need of the design, what purpose it should fulfill. Then collecting and also it's talking about collecting all the data about the user, all the data about the what kind of style, what kind of color we are following, and creating an idea about what the design will be. And then next phase is analysis. Analysis is can be in terms of user analysis, analyzing what is the user's need, what they expect in terms of visual communication, and it can also be a visual analysis. For example, if we have a predefined set of what we want to achieve, or look board or the mood board, and from that we had to analyze what kind of salient features it have, what kind of visual we can derive, and what kind of line qualities, what kind of color we have to extract from that. So we can create an color palette and all these elements, and we can specify these things during the analysis part. And then we start proceeding towards the concept design. That's the first stage of design, where the design will be in very conceptual level. It will be low fidelity or the initial designs, and we can also have 2-3 different concepts, which is like multivariate concepts. So we can also test, we can call this alpha, beta and gamma, these different low fidelity design, and we can test these designs with the user again, and then identify whether the concepts were needs some improvement, or we can go ahead with the concepts. And then we start moving towards the finalizing the design or implementation, where with adding more detail into it and going away with deleting the problems, and then and iterations, and towards the more high fidelity design prototype. So in orientation is the process of becoming familiar with the assignment in terms of graphic design, the problem, understanding the problem, what kind of for what kind of brand we are working with, what kind of users we are dealing with, and gathering all the informations together is the orientation process. So in orientation process, it's here you can see there are 3 things. One is understanding the client or organization or product. So if we are working for a brand identity creation, we need to understand what kind of brand is that, and what is our client's need. And then also we have to understand the user, what kind of set, what user set we are working with. So we will discuss about how to identify who's our real target audience or the user through different processes, different tools and techniques like generating persona, creating scenarios, and doing ethnographic survey, and how to understand user in a better way. So segmentation, persona generation, scenario building, and all these things are there. So understanding also the scenario will come in the next phase, which is understanding the interface between the user and product. So first we have to understand the product or the client and that set, and then we have to understand the user and what is the interaction between them. Scenario is like that. So scenario means how depicting a particular context where user is coming with the product. So how user are dealing with the product. It can be depicted in terms of a storyboard scenario. Each and every each and every interaction with the product and user can be depicted with a storyline as a narrative, or it can be depicted with a running paragraph. So as for example, a scenario for a website will be for a particular user. Website of a flight booking site will be a particular user wants to book a flight through a particular website, and it can be we can detail it further, like, but they can the user wants to book a flight in multi-city mode, or it can be in two-way. So these are different kind of scenarios. And the another scenario of the same user with the same website can be they want to check their frequent flyer mileage, or they through the same website they want to book a hotel. So they are different scenarios, but the user set are same here, and the brand or the product is also same, that is a flight and hotel booking site. So here we can see some examples like understanding the users. So user, it can be also depicted with some photographs. So from that we can start ideating for our design as well. So users are saying something like what they want to say, and what for that we also understand the user in a better way. So next is the analysis, and also after analysis we also formulate the design strategy. So the strategy is the core tactical thing. From based on that we will find out what is the conceptual design will be formulated based on the strategies and analysis. So that gives us a complete understanding of a design brief. Initially we were also discussing about the double diamond method of Donald Norman. So analysis is the end point of the first diamond, where we exactly pinpoint what is the need, what is the problem. So after analysis the first diamond ends, and we clearly define what we are going to what is the problem we need to solve. After that again we start diverging in the second diamond of the double diamond method, which we have just discussed in the previous lecture. So in that again we start diverging in the process. So where we start identifying different model, what will be the next strategy, which is the concept design. So orientation is the first phase of the diamond, where we start understanding the user, start understanding all these users problem, and the analysis is where we start thinking about what is exactly our users need. So here we are converging and pinpoint, we do pinpoint a particular problem. And concept generation, again we diverge and generate different concepts and test with that, and during implementation stage we select a particular the optimum solution. So the implementation is a converging part of the last diamond. Yeah, so in analysis or strategy formulation, here is a example. We can see the example of analysis from a design product as well. It can directly translate there. So it's talking about it's in the Little Monster. It's a brand which is which is targeted for the kids. So here in the analysis they must have fixed some kind of particular user's need. For example, the user is particularly kids, they like vibrant colors, and they are they have some affinity, and they have some liking towards the different kind of monsters which they see in different animated movies and all these things which they like. So what do they like, what their likings in terms of color, what the likings in terms of characters and other things, they have designers have analyzed, and that product is translated in translating that analysis part of their color palette and all these things into the final product. So in conceptual design, it has 4 steps. One is the preparation, so gathering all the materials together to design the concept, to start with the conceptual design. Then we have to incubate, and we have to sensitize ourselves through different models like mind mapping and other similar models which has been discussed earlier. And then we have to illuminate ourselves, we have to enlighten ourselves about the material palettes, what kind of to trigger with the idea. So for example, in the mind map also, all these words which is generated from the mind map will trigger our ideas to go creative and start designing something new. And then verification process also is the end, in the final stage of the conceptual design process. So after conceptual design, we will have lot of multiple options. We should create a lot of different options and taste that with the user, and we can also verify with some focus group discussion about the experts. So experts can also verify in terms of animation and game design, and in terms of new design where the product doesn't exist, then the experts opinion and the peoples who are sound with the knowledge of the domain will verify that. Otherwise we can bring it to the user, and user can test, and user can we can go with the usability testing for the verification and just before the implementation of the final design. So in the preparation stage, we have to generate a mood board, which I was just discussing. So in mood board, we have to jot down all these sets, which all these color palettes which we have derived from the analysis part. So mood board can also be designed in the analysis part. So while we are doing the analysis, we start jotting down all these things and create a mood board, and mood board is the starting phase of the conceptual design start. So it's not like mood board is whether it's there in the conceptual phase or in the analysis phase. It evolves from the analysis phase, and it's the concept generation starts from the mood board. So mood board is where we it's like a collage, and where we put all the color palettes which we developed from the analysis phase, and what kind of color we want to use in the design, and what kind of typefaces, what kind of imageries. We all create a take everything together and create a collage. So from that we start designing our first conceptual idea. So also there are other tools and techniques, for example card sorting, to understand the user better, and to create, after understanding the user, and to create the information architecture. Card sorting is more towards like translating the user need into the first concept generation stage. So in bottom up approach, or in participatory approach of design, where designers co-create or co-design with the user. So here it's not understanding the user doesn't stop in the first phase. So that also continues in the conceptual design phase, because designers create the design with the help of the user. So user understanding the user is is in the continuation with the conceptual design process as well. So in conceptual design process, user sits with the designer and they create the first concept. So in that, user designers can give something written on the card, and give the ask the user to sort and arrange and create their conceptual design. So in card sorting, it can be implemented in information architecture. So all these tabs of the button and all these websites, different pop-ups and buttons and what links can be written in a small card, and the designer can ask the user to sort and arrange according to their mental model. So their mental model will be directly translated into the conceptual design. So so the design will work better and will have more usability and more will be more user friendly. So affinity diagram is also a similar process. So in affinity diagram, what designers ask user to do is group the similar thing together. For example, if there are some if the website has different tabs, so user can group the similar tabs which has similar functions in one group. In card sorting, it was like users will select and pick one card, and which goes with their their mental model. And card sorting is generally associated with some task. So user designer should tell them to do a task or pick something. For example, for example, it can be for understanding the color. If designer can tell that ask the user that whether this website goes with this kind of color or with this kind of type faces, then user can pick that particular color which goes with that, and which what typefaces goes with the website. So in card sorting it is that, and in affinity diagram they start grouping together, grouping the similar things together, and then they create some broader groups which helps user designers to initiate to start the conceptual design from that clusters. And the user's mental model is becomes more clear in front of a designer's eye. So in the next design development phase, it's generally a non-linear phase. So it's again user testing and then conceptual design and then iterations, and all these things goes hand in hand. So in that phase also we also follow that iterative method which we also discussed earlier. Iterative rather than the waterfall model, iterative model is more applicable. So it's not a non-linear process, it's a loop. So we have to follow the iterative model where we have to discuss with the user and then change our design and redesign it. In that phase, the first thing can be paper prototype or wireframe, which is the low fidelity design. So we quickly design something. In this example, we can see some wireframing examples of wireframes. So these are not very clearly designed design concepts. So these are in a very conceptual level. So we can just sketch, or we can also use some wireframing wireframing tool softwares, for example Balsamiq. So there we can quickly design some sketchy informations and some tabs, and so that we go with the testing very quickly and not devote much time into designing the detailed thing, and after testing the concept might be even scrapped. So remembering that, we have to design it very quickly, and very less time will be designers put very less time to design this. Just the thought process which we the designer accumulate from the analysis part is translated in a very quick sketches. Then the paper prototype can be tested. For example, here you can see in the photograph, it's for an iPhone. So in an iPhone's format, it has been just a paper prototype has been given to the user, and for user analysis. So user can give feedback on this rather than designing a complete web application, complete mobile application, spending a lot of money and time on this. Only these wireframes can work and can give a direction to what is the most usable, more usable website and more usable final product. So towards after testing these things with the users, we go towards the high fidelity design and towards the implementation part. And implementation part is we stop discussing with the user, and it can users feedback can be taken, but the more the user feedback is taken in most of the user feedbacks and interviews has been taken in the previous stage, so that we minimize our scrapping the design and redoing it. So in this phase we finalize the design and start working with the only implementation part. So for example, these on the right hand side, on the left hand side you can see a lot of conceptual designs, and here only the final design which based on the users voting, and also it can be focus group discussions. Based on that, a particular design has been selected, and then that will be translated into the final detailed high fidelity design. So in this process also we do test with the design and validation happens. So this testing should be done from the initial stages, and in the first conceptual stages the testing has to be done more, so that we avoid the error. But in the final stage also we can do the final testing, and the testing for testing as we have also we know that with eye tracker we can do testing in web design as well as in the graphic design. That demonstration has been given. This was the mobile eye tracker. This is the recording device for the mobile eye tracker. This a battery can be attached with this, and a SD card goes into this. You can wear it. This is the cable which connects the eye tracker and the recording device. Connect this. And because this model is not based on Wi-Fi, so we have a cable connection between the controller software which can be installed in a laptop or tab, and that which will connect the recording device. So this is the connection. Switch it on. Yeah, you need to switch on this and launch the software. This is the glass controller software. So the glass controller software actually records what our user is looking at. So the recording device is there. There is a camera over here, and there are sensors which senses the eye, and it signals the eye. It senses the eye's position, and based on that, the eye's position will be superimposed on the recording screen. So to calibrate the eye's position, we have to calibrate her eye movement. The software is eye tracking device controller software, which shows what she is looking at, and it's for the recording. We also have a eye tracker analysis software, which the demonstration will be given later. So this here we have launched the software, and it says it's ready for new recording. So you click on this button. You can write the user's name and also write a brief description about the testing and create. So here we can see the video which is captured by eye tracker. So it's the user's point of view. So first we need to calibrate so that our the eye's motion is matching where users are looking at. So for calibrating we are using a black circular dot, so that the eye tracker recognizes this dot, and if the user is looking at that, the eye's position and the black dot's position is matched, so that we are calibrating the eye's position in terms of the 3D visual field. So and right now whatever after the calibration, whatever we are seeing, the eye's position is located, and you can see there is a red circular dot appearing that you can see in the middle of the video. So that is exactly where the user is looking at. So after this we can record a video. So as we discussed that this eye tracker is the 3D eye tracker. So this is wearable, so users wear it as a glass, and there is another version of the eye tracker which can be fixed in the desktop. So that is a desktop mounted eye tracker. So in that eye tracker only that eye tracker captures the desktop screen, and where on the screen with where the user is looking at. But here you can see if the user is looking away from the device as well, so that also can be captured. So here the user is looking at the different functions, different applications of an iPad, and the red button is depicting where he is looking at. In some points you can see that red button is disappears and again appears in some other point. So that is actually where user is not concentrating. So where the red button is appearing, only that part user is concentrating. So if there is a shift from red button position, so those are the parts where users are not looking at and not concentrating on a visual, but just the eyes moves from one side to another side. So in the analysis part we will discuss how what is the different function of this. So we can through the analysis software we can create a heat map. There we can understand where are the fixation points. So these are the fixation point where users are concentrating, and some points will be just eyes are glancing through some points. And this kind of eye tracker is very important for analyzing mobile devices and tabs. For desktop especially we have to use desktop mounted eye trackers. So here using this eye tracker we can see that all the principles of design which we have learned earlier are possible, and as well as we have discussed that Gutenberg's diagram and Jacob Nelson's F-shaped diagram, which we can validate through using that. So here you can see the important notifications are coming on the bottom right corner, and top right corner is also quite important. So these are some examples through where user is booking going through a functional applications, and after the recording is done, then user can you can stop click on the stop button, and the recording can be stopped, and you can this will be ready for the new recording. So right now after the Tobii controller software we can see some demonstration of the how the analysis software works. So if you install the analysis software and open it, so here you can see the video of what has been recorded earlier, you can see, and the user's eye location is also will be superimposed on the top of the video. In the project dashboard if you look at the top part, so it gives you some options to analyze. For example, it gives you the snapshot import. If you import the snapshot and it can, and if you do the visualization, and it can generate a heat map based on the users where in which visual area users have looked for more time, and which areas I have gone for lesser time. So here also you can see there are another option on the left corner, which is AOI, which is area of interest. You can create some area of interest based on a snapshot, and from the video it can track some of the it can recognize the similar area, and it can generate generate the analysis and tell the designer for how much time they have spent for a particular area of interest. So we will check some demonstration. So here it's a snapshot recorded from the if you have seen the previous video, from the similar angle you have to click a snapshot of a particular image which you want to on which you want to create a heat map. For that on the right hand corner, if you can see the video will be played, and you can pause on each and every time frame of the video, and the location you can mark on the snapshot. If you have done the all the after finishing all the marking on the from the video to the snapshot, it will give you a heat map. So we have already done some heat map analysis on the previous some previous research. We have done it on the basis of on a architecture space. So it's a 3-dimensional space, not unlike the web application, as it is a variable eye tracker. It can also map a 360-degree visual frame. So for that we have taken a visual, we have clicked a real life photograph, and on top of that we have done a heat map analysis. So here you can see the color. So the red color depicts the user's eye has spent more time on those areas, and the green color have depicts the user have spent some fewer time on this, and where there is no color from red to green, so user have not looked at those areas for the given time frame. So this is actually depicting a particular time frame has been taken. Under that time frame user have not looked at this part of the sky. If you change the time frame, then there might be some points where they have looked at these areas of the photograph. So for a better composition, as we have read earlier, the designer should try to utilize most of the field of their vision in a 2-dimensional design, so that your all the areas has some information about it. But also we have discussed that some of the negative spaces, where blank spaces also adds emphasis towards a particular subject. So where where you want to create a focal point, you can add some blank spaces around that, so that the focal point gets higher emphasis. So finally you can get export this kind of image as a visualization through eye tracker analysis software. There is another part. So there is another recording which we have done earlier, and similar points are located if from the video to the image. So another one is the area of interest. In the particular image we can create some area of interest. Area of interest can be created in terms of polygon. So in a visual frame, if you want to mark some of the particular areas where you want to determine where the user's attention has been drawn in a particular area. So you can create on this button, so draw button, you can create some polygon, and you can name these polygons, polygon 1, 2, 3 to as much as many as you want, and then on these areas if you superimpose these with the heat map, you can generate, you can understand that these areas how much visual emphasis they have on a particular image. So after that you can export this file, and also you can get get this file superimposed with a heat map if you have done the heat map analysis of the same photograph through the analysis software. With eye tracker we can understand whether the visual communication is happening properly and the way designers want or not. So through the testing, after everything all the process is done, the validation testing is done. So before launching the website or before publishing the visual or visual graphics or the branding or any kind of visual design. So before launching or before the final implementation, this testing can be done with the eye tracker. So thank you, and in the next module onwards we will start discussing the detailed design methodology in different paradigms like animation, web design and graphic design.